You're listening to the Esoterix Podcast.
Hello, friends, and welcome. I am Jo.
And I'm Fioraliz, and this is the Esoterix Podcast.
Yay. Hello, friend. Welcome to season 2. This is very exciting. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Although we did spend New Year's together, so.
We totally did, which blew my mind that when you mentioned that we had met less than a year ago or a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
Like who does that, right? Like who meets people and then online and then says, let's spend holidays, because you spend holidays with your closest, right? Especially something like that. So.
It was just funny because I came to that realization and we're sitting at the table together, and then I was like, you know what? I was just thinking of like where I was the year before, and the year before we also took a vacation. That's when we were in New Mexico. And I remember sitting in that living room at the Airbnb and talking to my husband and being like, hey, I think I'm going to sign up for this intuitive development with this person that I had my session with. And he's like, oh yeah, and so we were talking about it, and that's when I sent you the email. I remember sitting on that sofa and sending you the email, and I was like, how crazy to think that a year later we would be sitting across from each other. Just that much was kind of mind-blowing.
That is, and I totally believe that I met my soul family, that this move to Portland prompted the meeting of my soul family, because there's been, definitely you, top of the list, but there have been other people where I've been like, wait a minute, that's what? That feels very soul family-ish.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That's a very cool story. Well, one of these days in our memoirs, we'll have to write about that.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So what else is going on in the new year for you?
So I'm working on some stuff, some classes. I'm taking a few mentorships myself. I've joined a curanderismo mentorship that starts in March. That's actually with Erica Buenaflor. And so I'm just kind of participating and learning and just trying to do some self-development and seeing where it takes me.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And today is actually a new moon. We're taping on a new, or is it the full moon? It's the full moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the full moon. And all of the astro, oh my gosh, the people that I follow, the articles, the astrologists, the moonologists, they're all that this year is all about brand new movements forward, transitions, all that stuff. So imagine where you're going to be from a year from now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know this full moon is a really great time to set up what you want that moon to shine on. Like, what do you want that moon to illuminate for the rest of this year? It's a really great way to start off the year.
Oh, my legs are tingling when you said that. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So this full moon is in Cancer. So, and it is, by the time this airs, it will be Friday. So it will have set off. But there aren't any eclipses during this winter season for this year. So it is just the best time to set that up. Let your feelings out as far as, because it's a Cancer moon, and Cancer is very emotional.
Yes, they rule emotions.
Yeah, so write out the emotions. It's the emotions of how you want to feel,
how you want to feel.
Yeah, and it's actually perfect for what we're going to be talking about today. But I mean, that's a little bit later down. But yeah, illuminating that, really getting into that. Write it down, but also allow yourself to get into that space of feeling, because that's like the core of manifestation, is getting yourself into that feeling and accepting that you're there.
Okay, so that's going to be my full moon ritual. I'm not going to focus on release. I'm going to focus on my feeling and visualization and all of that stuff. So that's very exciting.
Yeah. So how about you? What's new with you?
Oh my goodness. I mean, so many things, just life. I mean, we took this really long break between season 1 and 2, which I really enjoyed, but it also gave me time to miss it because, the 5 in me, I get bored easily. And I wasn't bored with the podcast, obviously, but anytime I have to do something, it's like, right?
Yep.
So I need a kick in the pants to remind me. So mostly I'm just focusing on where I want to go. What do I want? Where do I want to be in a year from now? I start school this week, the 19th. It's a 6-week course, which is going to lead into another 6-week course. So that's going to be a total of 12 months, and it's metalsmithing.
Awesome.
And I'm just going to take it back to basics.
Okay.
The majority of the things that I'm going to be learning, I already know, but I'm self-taught. And so now it's time to really up my game. So it's about mastering the basics, because hopefully in March, I'm going to launch my first collection.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm really excited about it. I'm still doing readings, but classes and workshops, they're all going to be available as downloads versus live classes. It's just sort of what I'm shifting and making room for.
Okay.
That goes with the intuitive development class. That's going to be available in February. I know I said January, but guys, seriously, I'm a procrastinator. I am the worst. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say, oh, I've been very busy. Nope. I'm a fucking procrastinator. So I have to give myself a deadline, a date, and then I get shit done. I'm a last person deadline person, and I work really well under deadlines. So I can give myself that.
I do the same thing.
Yes. It's like, I love to say I'm going to do all sorts of shit. And then when it comes time to do it, I'm like, I'm very busy here watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer and petting my dog. Very busy.
Is that what you've been watching?
No, but I tell you what, I've seen every single Buffy episode there is, and I used to own the video, but I got rid of it when I moved, which is really, yes, like, why would I do that? I got rid of it.
I never really got into Buffy.
What?
No, I just didn't. I mean, I liked other. That was more, was that vampire, right? Is that what that was about?
Yeah, she was a vampire slayer.
Right. Yeah. I was more into like Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And yeah, I liked.
Have you seen the Netflix?
The Sabrina? No, my daughter watched it. And my daughter watched it. She said she liked it. I just haven't.
You got to do it. That's badass. I loved it.
Okay.
I was a little bit bummed to how it ended. Like, what?
Okay.
But yeah, no. Buffy had 7 seasons, and it was one of those shows where I'd be like, nobody call me, nobody text me, nothing if it's on, because I'm not going to answer the phone.
So it's funny that you say that, because my husband started watching, I'm totally ratting him out. He started watching Dawson's Creek because they put it on Netflix. And I used to watch Dawson's Creek like that when I was like 12, though, right? Like I was a 12-year-old girl. And so me and my best friend at the time, we would call each other and be like, are you ready? Okay, yes, it's on. And then we'd hang up, and then we'd watch it, and then we'd call each other at the end and talk about it. But so my husband started watching it, and I'll watch it with him too. But I stopped watching it at some point when I was a kid. Like we're rewatching all these episodes. I'm like, I don't remember any of this. Like none of this. I remember the first season, and I think I was done with it after that. I don't know.
You're like, I'm through this. Was it because you realized Dawson is a whiny little bitch? Because that's exactly why I hate that show.
Dawson is a whiny little bitch.
He's a whiny little bitch. It's like, you know what? Just shut the fuck up. So are you team? So is your husband team Dawson or team Casey?
I don't know. I don't think he likes any of them. I think he just watches it like a shipwreck, like a what is it?
A train wreck.
Yeah, because he can't look away. But I don't think he likes any of them. When I originally watched it, I was team Pacey. But now looking at it, I'm like, I don't think I like any of you anymore either. But I
always thought Casey was way sexier than Dawson.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not a blonde guy. I don't like the blondes.
Yeah, me either. But it just feels weird now because it's like, okay, I'm much older now. Now I'm like
Yeah.
checking out a teenager, and now it's weird. Like whereas
Oh,
before
it
I
feels
was a kid,
creepy.
yeah, it just feels creepy now. So I'm like, you're just kids.
Mhm.
But
Um,
the thing that I've found, and I remember that when they talked about this in the 90s, they would say like, oh, because it's such a like cool show, because like how they talk to each other. And it's like nobody fucking talks to each other like that at that
yeah.
age. That show is clearly written by adults, and these
Mhm.
kids are saying words. It's like you
Right.
don't talk like nobody talks like that.
It was the adult version of what they believe teen angst should look like and
Mm-hmm.
the type of knowledge. Now, granted, right? We didn't have the internet. I didn't have the internet when I was a teen. And so, the kids now are exposed to a lot more. I just read
Sure.
a post the other day. I forget where I read this post. It was on Facebook or Instagram, and it was a 17-year-old who was critiquing a book
Mm-hmm.
or a movie. Oh, the Euphoria, actually, the HBO series Euphoria, which is about drugs and teens and
I
stuff.
heard. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it gets really good reviews and everything. Well, I read a review on it, and she was, I was like, my God, if you're 17 and you're writing this,
Yeah.
just her general use of the English language to describe it was
Yeah.
amazing. So
Yeah.
there is a bit of a difference, but other than that,
I do just think that kids now are much more woke than they
yes,
used to be.
for sure.
So I think actually a show like Dawson's Creek would probably work better now than that show carries on, today. I don't
Yeah.
find it believable for 1 minute anymore. So
No, although it did give Michelle Williams a platform, who is an amazing actress,
it's
and so
crazy
she came out
how
of it.
yeah, it's crazy how
Yeah.
she ended up, out of that and out of all those people. And actually James Vanderbeek.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch The Bee in Apartment 23? I think it was a show
No.
for like one season. Okay, he's on that show, and I want to say he plays himself, but
Mhm.
he is fucking hilarious. Like
It's a good one.
so good. So I much rather watch him on that than watch
Yeah.
him. Yeah,
Well, when he's not being such a whiny little bitch, he's
exactly.
probably a good actor.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right, I love that segue, that Dawson's Creek segue, and shout out to your hubs, because yeah, well, you'll have to give us updates throughout the season of how he's reacting to various news and occurrences at the creek.
Oh God, yeah. And I know he's gonna watch it all the way through. Like he doesn't abandon shows. So.
Freaking love it.
Oh
All
my
right, so
God.
the rule is we call people out who binge hilarious shows or shows that we wouldn't think they would.
Right.
What'd you recently binge? Anything?
The last show that I binged was Working Moms. And
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
it's so good.
Yeah,
I mean
Working
it's
Moms.
just
Writing it down.
hilarious. It's hilarious. It's a Canadian show, but it's just hilarious. They just get in certain situations where it's just as funny. And that's what I like. I like stuff that is more just humorous and uplifting, and I don't feel like, oh, that's heavy. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Have you seen Ted Lasso?
yes. Yeah. We
Yeah.
talked about
Yeah.
Ted
Oh,
Lasso.
I asked you.
Yes.
All right, so I just got done binging Harlots, Harlots. Yes, and it's like 1800s England. Oh my God, that show is amazing. And it stars Samantha Morton, who is like the empath in some dumb Tom Cruise movie. And she was recently in The Walking Dead.
Mm.
Samantha Morton's a badass. And it is the coolest show, especially if you have a past life where you were a prostitute. I have several. And wow, does it take you back? Like for me, I would be watching something, and then I would have these crazy little like, oh, this feels familiar. This feels
Oh.
familiar. Why does this feel so familiar? But yeah, it's a really good period piece. It's not really funny, but it's
Yeah.
also it's just good.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I was just listening to it was somebody they were talking about a client, a medium, and she was telling the client how the things that you resonate with, or the things that resonate with you, especially when it comes to entertainment, usually have a lot to do with your
Yeah.
past life. Like
Yeah.
what is interesting, there's people who love, World War II documentaries, and they just cannot get enough of that stuff.
Yeah.
There's usually some, or Egyptian history or Roman history or whatever it was, but like there's usually something, or the vampire thing, right? Like vampires
Yeah.
or witches. There's a lot of stuff. For me, I think it's always been stuff that has to do with like that, like the occult, like witches, dark, a little bit darker stuff. So, and I know I've had past lives where that's been part of my life. The other thing too, though, since I was little, I always had like this thing with like Jesus. Like, I don't know if I've ever told.
Yeshua.
Yeah, where I was just like, he's cool, just like in like a thing of like, I just think he's a cool guy. Like, not necessarily in a religious way of like, oh, you know, I'll be almighty and like all reverence to you. More just like, oh, he's like cool. He's like my friend. I don't know. So
He's a down ass dude.
yeah,
He's like the original hippie, I
yeah,
think, right? With his
yes,
sandals and everything.
yeah. So
And his long-haired hippie people need not apply. So Harlots is on Hulu, just in case anybody is interested in that. But when you were talking about like vampires and the occult and all of that stuff, there was something that I was thinking of that popped into my head, a show or something, and now it's gone. So
well, there's people, like even like Harry Potter, right, and wizards and magic and all that. So I think again, it has a lot to do with maybe what you experienced in the past life. So if anyone who's interested in maybe getting clues, look, that's a way to look at clues of what are you attracted to, what resonates with you, just entertainment wise, reading wise, all that. And I'm sure that's a pretty strong clue of where you've been in past lives.
Yeah. I know I talked about why I actually am a silversmith in this lifetime is because of a past life where I was a blacksmith and I saw this vase and I was just floored. I couldn't believe. Yeah. So cool stuff, right?
That's very cool.
Hey, can we talk about the retreat?
Yes. Okay.
Tell us.
All right. So I know this has been pending. So we have our second retreat. This is Journey the Soul. And yay! This one is taking place in West Olive, Michigan. The dates are May 27th through May 29th. And so this is just a few minutes from the Lake Michigan shore.
Beautiful.
Pricing right now is open for early bird enrollment. That's 7-11, and that's as long as you enroll before February 1st. After that, it's 888, and we do have payment plans available if you need them. We will also have the option for add-ons. This is up to we have up to 6 spots available. This is for like a small group private integration. This is after the retreat on the Monday. That's with Jo and I. So if you are interested in that, everything that we're covering in this retreat is in pretty much intuitive development. It's like a fast track weekend chocked full of intuitive development is essentially what it is.
Yes. So we're gonna have some beach bonfires, or at least one, right?
Yeah.
And some creative work as well. There's a massage. There's a massage chair, and a Reiki table. We're gonna have Cassie's Parlor is gonna come, and she's going to. I forget what she's going to do, but it's gonna be a crafting session, something that relates to the weekend. I totally forgot.
Okay.
Sorry, Cass, but that's okay because it makes it more of it in a surprise. I mean, there's just so many good things. Yummy food. We can have cocktails around the fire. So it's just going to be a really fun, amazing, lovely, wonderful weekend. So I'm excited about it.
And more information and the full links and everything are going to be linked in the show notes, or you can just go to esoterixpodcast.com.
Yeah, that's right. That's all ready to go. You do need to email us to find out the payment link to make payment, because I didn't want to just throw it out there on the interwebs, but it's easy peasy. It's all set up. Let's do this. All right. Today, after today's episode, there's going to be a Zoom call on Sunday the 23rd at 4 p.m., we're going to dig a little deeper into today's topic. What are we talking about today, Fiora?
Today we are talking about the intuitive body.
All right. All right. So
it's January, and this is the time we all set, or a lot of us set resolutions or things we want to do different over the year before. We've been quarantined for like 2 years now. So we haven't, not all of us have been able to be as active. We have, a few maybe extra pounds we put on over quarantine.
a few.
Unless you're, an actress who can afford to hire personal trainers and personal chefs and get in the
Or somebody to eat for you.
best shape of your life. But, no hate to you. I mean, that's wonderful. But
Right.
we just thought it would be an important conversation to have today, to talk about how intuition and your mind and just the whole idea of being spiritual and how this relates to your body. And we're gonna just kind of talk about a lot of different things that kind of popped up for us that we felt were important to talk about, that maybe not everybody talks about all the time, because it's just easy to be like, okay, I'm gonna go on a diet plan, I'm gonna do low carb, keto, whatever, and I'm gonna exercise, and then you do it for 3 months and then you fall off the wagon, and then what, and then it's just done. So,
and see, for me, it doesn't even last 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if I can get through a week, I'm lucky. And the thing is that it's not that I suck. It's that I just don't have the focus or the thing that is really keeping me motivated. So that's another thing that's we can explore too. Like, what motivates you? What keeps us focused?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and also the diet culture thing, right? I mean, I feel like there's been a lot of really important shifts over the last couple of years, though, of people calling out diet culture for what it is.
Yeah.
And for saying, no, like, we're not doing this. We're not counting calories. We're not counting macros. We're not doing this, and that, because it's unhealthy. Because what's the point? Like, who wants to live a life constantly tracking what they're eating? Like, fuck that.
No. No, and I would rather explore my brain and what makes me lose that focus versus what, using that brain to say, I've eaten 500 calories today. I have, 400 more, or some ridiculous amount, right? So no,
yeah,
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, and there's a book that we read that we recommend, helps to shed a lot of light on this, on the spirituality and how you can incorporate that to change your body. And it is called Shapeshifting: The Body, Mind, Spirit, Weight Solution by Lisa Bonnice. Yeah. You were actually the one that recommended that book to me.
Yeah, I found it randomly. Actually, I had asked Spirit for some guidance and some help, and they of course always come through, but I found it randomly, and I just thought it was interesting, the shape-shifting part. Like, wait a minute, shape-shifting, we think we think spirit animals or metaphysical or something, right. And so that's what piqued my interest. And then I was like, what? Because it basically, she gives you the map to do this thing that I've always known in the back of my mind. Back when I had my studio in Lansing, I had a group called work group Empaths and Weight, or something like that. And it was this work group that focused on not the food, but it focused on what are all of the different metaphysical ways that we can use to incorporate weight loss versus diets, because nobody wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So it sort of struck something in me.
Yeah, I feel like whenever you subscribe to the word diet, and you've got to maybe change your understanding around that word, because the diet is just literally just means it's whatever you eat. Not saying like you only eat, XYZ and you cut out carbs, and that's it's what you eat in your day-to-day is technically just your diet. That's all it means. It's the food that you eat.
Right.
So allowing yourself to separate that definition of, like, diet equals bad. Like, no, diet is just what I eat. That's it.
Yeah.
What I loved about the book, like you said, the shape-shifting component of putting the emphasis back on the internal and what goes on in your head, because a lot of the times it's like you said, it's you can only do things for so long because it's like it's almost like your brain's not letting you, like
Right.
you're being your motivation's gone, or you whatever you feed into, just you feel lazy, or just like, yeah, I just don't want to fucking do that anymore, or that cake just looks really good and I just want to have that.
Or here's the other one that I struggle with, is that when I start to do really well and I start to get compliments, then the subconscious child kicks in.
Uh-huh.
That's the foundation for having experienced molestation and abuse as a child. So then there's the that sort of subconscious attempt to hide,
Mm-hmm.
my femininity and my beauty and my desirability, that kicks in. And so then it's like, diet's over, I'm done. And as an adult, even though you realize this,
Mm-hmm.
it's still very difficult to say, hold on, baby, hold on,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that's really what my focus is going to be this year, is soothing that inner child. But
Yeah.
there's so many other things you got to get through
And I'm
first.
glad you bring that up, because yeah, that is so much inner child work, but that's
Yeah.
and that's because it's the ego, right? And that's what the
Yep.
ego is. A lot
Keeping
of
us
times
safe.
it's keeping you safe, and the ego is a lot of times mostly shaped by our childhood experiences, because our
Yeah.
ego in general is shaped by our lifetime experiences, but usually our childhood experiences are the ones that stick the most to us, affect us the most, because they've been there the longest, and it's just
They're
how
the deepest.
we've learned to operate from that point. So it becomes this task of talking to your inner child
Mhm.
and communicating with them and letting them know, like, that they are safe first and foremost, and that they are loved on top of that. And then again, the communication of what am I doing in this moment to help heal the inner child. So and just a side note, this is one of the things that I had to learn to undo a few years ago, maybe like I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, um, was to stop rewarding myself with food, because I'm
Yeah.
not a dog. It's
Right. Right.
I am not an animal. So to disconnect that, because that for the long time was, again, that was a diet culture thing of like, oh,
Mhm.
cheat day, like, oh yes, I eat great Monday through Friday, it's the weekend, I can let loose or whatever, I don't have to stick to a diet plan, and then back, you start back up on Monday, and then you're back to square one.
It's punitive. It's this punitive energy.
Yeah.
Cheat day is a reward, but it's not. It's like,
Yeah.
you get to do whatever you want. You get to go revert back to your old ways, or blah
Exactly.
blah blah.
Exactly.
It doesn't make
So
sense.
when it comes to going back to rewarding the inner child, look for other things. What other things would work for rewarding that inner child? Because that's the thing, is that exercise and being active doesn't have to be a chore. It can be fun. Like, I shit a lot on Zumba because I think it's glorified line dancing,
It's
but
dumb.
if you like to dance and you enjoy Zumba, go do it. Because
Go do
just
it.
because I
Have
don't
fun.
like it doesn't mean that it's wrong, and doesn't mean that it's not going to work for you. But 'cause, like, I was just talking to my mom about this last week, because she was saying she's taking a stress leave from work, and she went to the doctor, and I don't remember what it was that they were telling her, but I was saying, I'm like, you need to exercise. I'm like, and I'm not talking about like going to the gym and lifting weights necessarily for you, like, but you like to dance. So I'm like, so just go out and dance, or put on some music and like dance at home. I don't know, like, you have a boyfriend, like, go out and go dancing, or do something that feels good for your body. And for people who I've had a few friends that have very physically demanding jobs, where maybe they walk all day or they lift heavy things all day. So maybe going to the gym and lifting weights after doing a whole day of lifting boxes and stuff, that's not conducive to health. So maybe for you, something, it's the balance. It's the balance of, okay, so I'm not going to do any more lifting, but I'm going to go home and maybe do some yoga, or just just stretch or do a meditation, but it's about finding the balance between, what am I already doing too much of? So for me personally, like I do too much sitting. So for me, I enjoy going to the gym. I need to have that level of activity and also that release of excess energy because I sit too long between work or sitting in a car all day. It's too much. So my balance for me just happens to be the gym. But yeah, definitely the inner child work can be life changing, and it is so important, especially if you have had any kind of childhood trauma, but especially the sexual trauma, because like you said, the way that you end up protecting yourself, the way that your body ends up trying to protect itself from more of that happening to it, a lot of times turns into excess weight, like excess.
It's just, yeah, it's a way of just protecting.
Yeah,
It's
protection.
protection, and then you have to ask yourself, well, I have to ask myself whenever I get triggered, why do I fear being desirable?
Mhm.
Why? Really, what is it,
Yes.
right? Why do I fear being attractive?
Yeah.
And it's not that I fear those things in and of themselves. It's, being desirable means that you attract, as a child, being desired is wrong, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
there's just this whole mental, fuckery that goes on that you have to sort through and pick through. And sometimes if you don't have those tools, which I am, realizing that I don't, and I'm learning what those are, then what's your subconscious or your immediate response? Comfort. I want to feel. I feel unsafe.
Safe.
Comfort.
I wanna feel
Comfort
safe.
food.
Mhm.
So safety is it goes a bunch of ways.
Yeah.
I want to touch back on physical activity. So I have this book called The Life You Were Born to Live, and it's a guide to finding your life purpose. This was the book that we got at Powell's when
Yes.
you were here in Portland. It's by Dan Milliman, and when we were leafing through it at the at Powell's, we were both like, "Oh, this is a book on numerology," and I'm like, "Oh, numerology, I'm going to pick it up." But once I got into it, it's a different system of numerology. This is actually it's based on numerology, but it's about life purpose.
Okay.
And one of the cool things in this book is that it gives you a breakdown of health or exercise or physical activity that is more appealing to a person based on their life path, which is fascinating to me. And then I read mine and it was spot on. And mine, as a 33-6, also a 15-6, is that I'm drawn to exercise that feels natural and balanced. A simple, efficient routine incorporating the essential elements: breathing, stretching, toning, and relaxation. And that's always, I don't like physical activity. I don't like to sweat. I don't like to pump iron. I don't like to do any of that. I like to stretch and tone and walk and all of those things. So this is a cool book. So anybody that joins us on the Zoom call, if you want to know what exercise is best for you based on your life path, just let me know and I will pull this book out and figure it out for you.
Well, we're going to do that on the Zoom call. Yeah. Let's do that on the Zoom call because I want to know mine.
Zoom call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just one more thing about the inner child that you mentioned. I think in that moment when that inner child is screaming like no, like it's important to circle back and tell her, look, I'm an adult now and I can keep us safe. I keep us safe. No one's going to hurt us. No one's going to touch us if we don't want to be touched. Like no one's coming after us, and reassuring her that's the truth because we are adults now and we can keep ourselves safe.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot more to it for me specifically, but that's exactly how you soothe the inner child. And wow, it can feel and these are just my feelings, but wow, sometimes it can feel a little bit like overwhelming. I had mentioned this in the group that sometimes I find myself in that whole mindset of I want to be rescued, and then I realize, oh, this comes from that whole thing. So this is the year where I'm going to figure all that out, right?
Yeah.
Really address it and kick it in the butt.
Yeah. There's something else that's in this shape-shifting book where she talks about comparison. And again, this is more of
Yeah.
that shedding of the diet culture thing, because with social media and all the different influencers that are out there and people telling you, like, sharing what they eat on the daily and da da da, and it's like, well, I want to look like her, so I'm gonna eat what she eats so that I can look like her. But at the end of the day, you're still two different people, and you have your own individual body, and what works
Mhm.
for that person's body doesn't mean that it's gonna work for yours. So releasing that
Yep. Let it
comparison
go.
too. um I've had to do that over the last few years, because my Instagram account, normally it started as basically just an accountability profile. And so over the years, I followed a lot of different fitness people and people who would share workouts and all this stuff. But I found that so much of it is like, first of all, they're just trying to keep engagement up. So,
Yep.
and unfortunately with workouts, the thing that works the most is like kind of boring. It's kind of a lot of the same shit. A lot of, just increasing the weight or increasing the reps over time on the same exercise that you've been doing. And yeah, you switch up things here and there, but otherwise, and that's boring. It's boring to constantly post that, on online, and you're not going to get the same engagement over time. So they have to, come up with these creative ways to switch it up or whatever, and it becomes detrimental, because a lot of those exercises are bullshit, or they're not
Yeah.
functional, or whatever. They just don't they're not actually maximizing the benefit of the movement.
Wasn't Instagram recently called out by somebody? It was a celebrity for being like the devil, because of that whole sort of culture of comparison where we see all these
Mhm.
idealized and stylized timelines, and we're like, my life sucks because I'm not accomplishing and doing and looking and feeling and all these
Yeah.
things. It was recently called out, like it's not a good place for kids.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's been a few. I know Jamila Jamil is one of the ones where she a lot of times calls out she calls out the Kardashians a lot
She
for,
calls
promoting
everybody
those
out.
diet teas and
Yeah.
waist trainers and all that bullshit, because none of it works. They're just somebody trying to sell you a product. And
Right.
that's so much of social media. So in the book, Lisa talks about accepting your own body, and if anything, if you need some kind of I don't like inspiration, is maybe looking at somebody in your own family who has like a different, like a maybe a slimmer version of your own body, like hip consistency, that kind of stuff. But I'm like, but we
Yeah.
don't all have that. Like I mean, I'm one of the oldest ones in my family, and I
Hmm.
don't look like a lot of people in my family.
No. I,
So I mean, that doesn't necessarily work for me. What I have found though is just coming to the acceptance that I am shaped different than other people, and that's okay. I'm not going to look like, I don't know, I'm just going to not going to look like other people, because I can only look like a better version of myself, and that's it.
yeah. Yeah. So when I read that, what I got from it is I look like my mom, right? I have my mom's body, but that we also have my grandma's body. And my grandma, who's passed over, there's this beautiful picture of her in her flower garden. And it's
Uh-huh.
like 1940s. And she's got this beautiful 1940s dress on, and she looks like a pinup girl. And her body is that's that's the body that I idealize, using Lisa's suggestion, to find somebody in
Oh,
your
okay.
in your family. That's the body. And it's not even about idealizing it. It's just saying, at my healthiest weight,
Uh-huh.
my
Uh-huh.
perfect weight, that's what I'm going to look like. And it's just this regular old body. It's nothing
Sure.
va va boom or anything like that. It's just a body.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So again, like, we can each take what works for you,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's really what it
Yeah.
comes down to. Um, One of the things you kind of touched on was about comfort food. And she
Yeah.
talks about this in the book as well, as far as how comfort food feels good in the mouth, but healthy food feels good in the body.
In the body. Yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
taking the time to actually taste your food without distraction, so that the mouth can get what it needs, and
Yep.
that you don't end up overeating or having to just over consume because the body's or the mouth isn't getting what it needs, and
Yeah.
allowing your body to have the
Having
nutrition.
what it wants. So that actually touches upon that the recent story where I was standing in front of the refrigerator, and my normal thing is to just pull out leftovers. I don't really like to cook in the morning. There's too much going on. I like to have my coffee and be left alone. It's just me and my dog, so leave me alone. But leftovers are easy, and I prefer leftovers. I'm not really a big breakfast food person. All right.
Okay.
So when I'm pulling the leftovers out to throw them into the microwave, I just got this overwhelming sense in my body. It was mostly located in my abdomen, my gut, my solar plexus and sacral. And then clairaudiently, I heard with my inner hearing, your body doesn't want that. You can have that for lunch. And I was like, of course I was like a petulant child, like, man, I don't want to cook. So, and then I just started pulling out vegetables and protein, because it said you want vegetables and protein.
Okay.
And I made this lovely stir fry. It took maybe 10 minutes. I don't know what the big deal was, but chicken and stir fry. Simple, no carbs, no rice, lots of flavor. And I sat down and I ate that, and it felt wonderful, because this is what was going through my body. Number one, my mindset was I ate something that's healthy. I ate something that's good for me. And I ate something that is delicious and that I love.
Yeah.
But now how it affects my body, how my body processes it, was completely different than if I had eaten the carb breakfast. I felt energized. I felt light. I felt ready to go. I didn't feel heavy. I didn't feel that gluten, because I'm really gluten intolerant, especially in the mornings.
Yeah.
I didn't feel any of that. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So that is sort of a really good example of listening, to your body, even when you don't want to, because of the impact that food actually has on your physical body. Because you and I are always breaking everything down into science, right? The science of it, the science of this and of that. But let's talk about the science of food that interacts with your physical body. Your physical body is an organic being. That food is organic. So those two things, not all organic things are going to be compatible. And so really it's about compatibility and science. When it comes to feeling good, that's just one of the aspects that you can look at this.
Right.
If you're like me, who's like, I hate diets. I don't want to do that.
So Lisa references a book called The Magic in Food by Scott Cunningham. And that one talks about the different, so if we're all made of energy, including food, and Lisa reiterates this point over and over and over throughout the book about just getting it through your head and the acceptance that we are all energetic beings, but also everything, because everything is made out of atoms and it's all energy, that everything is energy. So including food, but and because it's energy, it has a certain vibration, and certain foods vibrate at a different level. And usually like greens and just the healthier food, because it's made of mostly water, it has a higher vibration. But in that the magic in food, he actually breaks down like how some foods are more for protection or comfort, and other foods are more for anywhere from like sexual energy or even like money. And so there's different levels of food, which I thought that was an interesting approach.
Yeah. That's very cool. I'm going to actually pull that up and check it out and look at it here.
Yeah. One of the things that helped me just a couple years ago was I did this, and I don't recommend this for everyone because it was hard, but it was a sugar cleanse diet. And this wasn't like I wasn't drinking like teas and it wasn't like subscribing to like a thing or whatever. It was essentially just following a certain meal plan for like 4 weeks and eliminating the sugar out of my diet. And the first week was fucking hell because you don't realize how much sugar you are ingesting. And
That sugar's in everything.
but there wasn't, although I did this, I did not understand the science behind it. So I did it, and then all I knew was after I was done with the 4 weeks was like, I feel great. And I want to like keep doing this, but I struggle with, I can't eat the same food all the time. I need variety. And I also, and I also like to eat out. I enjoy restaurants. And I don't want to limit myself in that way. So I ended up finding this book called Body Love by Kelly Leveque, and she breaks down the science behind the blood sugar curve. So essentially it's, okay, if you ever notice when you eat like a high carb meal, like something with rice or like sushi, for example, it's a lot of rice, a lot of carbs. And for some reason, after you eat sushi, like 2-3 hours later, you're just like hungry again.
Sugar spikes.
Yeah. So it's just because when you consume a lot of carbs, a lot of sugar, especially early in the morning, it causes your blood sugar to just go up, like just sharp up. And then once it falls, it's like a sharp fall down. And then all of a sudden your body's like, I need more. So she teaches you essentially just to eat to lengthen the blood sugar curve. What I found about it was that it was just a doable thing. Like it's not something like where she's prescribing like you can only eat XYZ and you have to like measure your food. It wasn't like that. It was just as long as your meals incorporate protein, healthy fats, greens, and fiber in every single meal, that's all you need. So if you if you want to have your carbs, if you do want to have the rice, just make sure there's a lot of fiber in your food as well.
The balance.
Yeah, it's the balance thing. And that's what I felt like it was just very approachable and just and I could still go out and eat out and still enjoy the foods that I liked without feeling like, oh no, this is bad for my diet. Like, no, I never felt like I was on a diet.
No. You're just making specific choices.
Yeah, and really the fiber thing makes all the difference. Like, because I love bread, and I'm not gonna not have bread.
No. Hey, so I want to talk about a portion of this book, and it's called "Loving Your Body." So she points out that the way the food makes you feel, because this is 90% of eating is about emotion, right? Very few of us eat for fuel. So the way a food makes you feel when you eat it can tell you how it's sort of impacting your body. She says helping or hurting. I don't know that that's a good way to look at it. I think it's how is this impacting your body or your feelings? So basically she says if you eat an orange, you feel alive and vibrant, right? Because it's that zap of energy. But when you eat like ice cream or pasta and bread, it makes you feel full and solid and comforted and hugged and love, right? All those warm, fuzzy feelings. But so she says that if that's the only way that you get those feelings, you're going to load up on those foods. That's the core of emotional eating. So the other thing that I love is that she mentions, she does talk about the energy of food. She talks about the essence of food, that level of vibration, how a food vibrates. Veggies and fruits, they're mostly water, like you said, so they vibrate higher. So going back to that list that we were talking about, so bread and rice and potatoes and tortillas and all of those things, those give us that feeling of warmth, of protection and comfort. Whereas like, things like asparagus and carrots and celery and cucumbers, all those vegetables, they give us various different feelings like sex, love, beauty, healing, peace, all that stuff. So it is very interesting to take a look at what you subconsciously assign, because anytime I do a channel about, weight or anything, Spirit says every single time they say it's not what you eat, it's the energy that you are consuming it with, right? So if you're eating a piece of cake and you're like, this cake is going to make me fat, this cake is going to make
it's going straight to my thighs,
good for me. That's intention. And you and I both talk about how important intention is, but the in the book Body Talk, that we'll link in the show notes, the message is, when you eat something with the intention of, this is delicious, my body loves this, I'm giving my body the gift of nourishment and love and deliciousness, that's how it's going to impact you. So that's something that I would love to dig deeper into, which, it takes consistency, which we know I lack. But what a cool concept. And to think about the energy in which you eat something.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
the process of it.
Definitely. And so you and I have talked about this privately, because this is something that I experienced in a ceremony. And this was an ayahuasca ceremony. So I don't think that you need to do ayahuasca to get here. I think that you can get here on your own. It's just, for me, it was just that, like, I never set the intention to do it, and my body was like screaming at me like, hey, we need to talk. So in ceremony, at one point, my body was just like very uncomfortable and very just like, I like angry with me. And I first I was like, oh God, you're upset because you don't want this, you don't want the ayahuasca in you, like you're mad because, and so I was like, okay, let's talk. So I had this whole conversation with my body where I'm like, okay, let's talk. Let's talk about what do you not like? And we start talking. and this is very much just like, just intuitive, because there's not like a literal voice talking back to me. But
No, but it's your inner,
yeah,
it's your inner hearing,
yes,
it's your intuition.
yeah.
Yeah, it's your higher self.
Yeah. So it starts telling me, like, I don't like fried foods. I don't like fried foods. I don't like fried chicken. And I'm like, what? What do you mean?
Wrong. You are wrong.
No. And so we start talking about, all the things that it doesn't like. It doesn't like that. It doesn't like super spicy stuff, super spicy food. It does not like alcohol. It definitely does not like alcohol when it is mixed with food. Like, please don't ever do that again, was essentially the message there. And so we got on this whole thing of like, okay, these are all the things I don't like. These are all the things I don't want to do anymore. And then we also had a conversation of, okay, what do you like? And we talked about that. Like, we talked about like, really like massages. I'm like, of course you do. Yeah. So we talked about all the things we do like. And so, definitely made notes on all those things. But then I was like, okay, all right, got it. So these are the things you don't, and these are the things you do. Now I need you to work with me, because if you don't want me to have the fried foods and you don't want me to have the fried chicken, then you got to help me not crave it. Like, because if I crave it, like, it's really hard for me to say no. So let's work together. If we're not going to do that, then you got to like help me not want it. So, and it's crazy because I don't crave it. And like my kids like love that stuff, and I don't buy it for them. My mom does, but they'll come home with like Raising Canes or some, some fried chicken stuff or whatever. And I've looked at it and I see it and I'm just like, yeah, that doesn't look good at all.
Yeah,
so whereas before I'd be like, oh, let me have a piece.
Working with your higher self is so it's so impactful, it's so important, and it's such a really great step to take, to say, okay, I'm going to be accountable for the things that I'm putting in my body, but also to sort of surrender and say, but I need help. Obviously, because when you think of it, your higher self, your oversoul is your oversoul, right? So when you incarnate, it's just a portion of that oversoul gets put into the physical body. It's like a spark, right? It's that flame. Think of yourself as Fiora, as the flame, but your true self, or your more complete self, is your oversoul, your higher self. And you're just an extension of that. And the higher self has the ability to say, no, I don't want that. So, but because of free will, we have to ask for help, not just with food. It's with intuitive development. It's with anything. You have to say, okay, spirit, I need your help.
Yeah.
My legs are tingling
Yeah.
right now. So
Yeah. And the other thing that I started to do after that was, before I start any exercise, is just take like 2 minutes. Doesn't have to take very long, but just take a couple minutes to check in with my body and talk about, okay, like, what are we here for? What do we hope to achieve? Like, what is the purpose of this workout? And it's like,
yeah,
uh,
what's the intention?
it's, yeah, exactly. What is the intention? It's like, just to feel stronger, to feel like we did something today. Like, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
that complicated. It just to feel more energized, to feel whatever, just to like allow ourselves to feel the power of our muscles. Like, I mean, it can be whatever you want, but just taking that moment to tune in, and most importantly, to thank the body and be like, well, you know what, thank you for being here, for allowing me to have, the motivation, the strength, the tenacity to get through this, to do this. And then at the end, again, just thank it, like, hey, we did it, like, it's awesome, and just like, you celebrate yourself. And that brings me to another point of self-validation versus outside validation. Um, I'm personally, like, I recommend hiring personal trainers, especially if you've never like worked in a gym and you want to go and start, working out in a gym. It helps to uh, get you familiarized with things and kind of structure workouts for yourself if that's something that you want to do. It also helps with accountability and all that, but it's also easy to fall into a trap of needing that outside validation, outside motivation, outside accountability. And it's almost like, oh, well, if I don't have anyone holding me accountable, like, I'm not going to do it anymore. Well, learning to give yourself self validation. And actually, I listened to it's a podcast called The Adult Chair with Michelle Chafont, and it's a great podcast for psychotherapy. Like, I one of my friends recommended it a while ago, and I listen to episodes all the time. She has one on this, and she talks about it, and it's actually very simple. Self-validation is something as simple as just like giving yourself a little high five in your head, like, that was awesome, you did great, or that, like, I made that meal, that looks awesome, good job, good job, Fiora. Like, it doesn't have to be a big celebration. You don't have to tell anyone else about it. It's just for you. And getting into that mode of giving yourself self-validation as you go along with your day, and how it becomes natural, and you stop searching for outside validation because you get it from yourself.
Yeah, it sounds similar to, showing appreciation to spirit. You know how I always talk about gratitude versus appreciation, that gratitude has a little bit of
Yes.
of an I'm undeserving feel. So instead it's appreciation. So, we're always told, show appreciation for this, for that. Gratitude is, the thing. But do we ever show it to ourselves? Because we are spirit. Again,
Yeah.
we're that 25%, we're that spark. So,
Yeah.
incorporating that and shifting your perspective, that gratitude goes both ways. And we seek validation internally. We don't need it externally.
Yeah.
We don't look for it. It's not something, that is necessary.
Yeah.
I love that. I think, one of the things that we wanted to talk about was shame and sexual trauma and all of that, and we sort of touched on it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But the shame is something that is, we inherit that, we learn that, right? Where does that shame come from? So
Yeah.
I specifically want to talk about empaths. So when you're an empath, you have the ability to feel and experience other people's emotions.
Yes.
You feel them with your body. But if you don't know you're an empath, much like a child would not know, because the majority of, abuse and trauma takes place as a child, because one human being is, can control children.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take that on, it's important to understand that as an empath, you're feeling other people's emotions and you're taking those on as yours, because you don't have the emotional capacity to compartmentalize or to say, those aren't my emotions. You're just a little baby, or a little 4 or 5 year old. In my instance, it was, a young child, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, you don't know that those feelings aren't yours. And so how those then find space and root in your body and in your process, your thoughts, your mindset is via shame. Because you're feeling the shame of your abuser. And so then now that shame becomes self-directed. And so one of the things that I've had to work on for years and years and years and years and years is looking at a situation and saying, I'm not going to feel shame about this. This is not my shame. This is learned and a learned response or learned emotion. So shame is huge when it comes to, processing body weight and diet and all that stuff. So earlier when I touched on, that the weight gain is a subconscious attempt to hide your femininity and desirability, and then you ask yourself, why do I fear desirability? Or I ask myself, why do I fear desirability? And why do I fear being attractive? It's because those things are subsets of shame. Shame, and then also desirability. Why would one feel fear desirability? Because if you're desirable, then people want you and then people can hurt you.
Yeah.
Because ultimately we have to be vulnerable in order to let that good love in, right? The love that pays off, the love that keeps us safe and protected. But we also have to have that discernment on who to let into our lives.
Yeah.
This person, is more than likely not going to hurt me.
Yeah.
And then the same with being attractive, the shadow says, well, if you don't find me attractive, then there's no fear of me getting hurt. Right. But then that's keeping you from finding somebody who does find you attractive so that you can have a healthy, relationship. So all of that is tied to shame. There, of course, Brene Brown has the book, or she has several books on the topic of shame. And so I recommend anybody who does that deeper work and peels the onion and finds that shame at the core to really dig into it, because it's like there's a spectrum. Shame is a spectrum, and you have to really uncover that.
Yeah, I think with shame, the first step with any of this is just acknowledging it, right? Like acknowledging that it's there, and that's the first step to working through it.
Yeah, and acknowledging that shame is nothing to be ashamed of. Shame is a result of other people's or ideologies, or it's not something that's real. It's something that's perceived, and
it's an
once
emotion.
you peel that onion, it's an emotion, a feeling, temporary, I guess.
Yeah, and then just definitely allowing yourself to untangle it and understand where it comes from, and God, so much of this is crazy because that it's inner child work, because even
it is.
Even the unlearning of things that we learned as children, like finishing all the food off your plate, right? Like,
Yep.
There's children starving in, insert third world country or whatever. And now you have to eat all your food, even though you're not hungry anymore. And detaching yourself from that, of like, no, that's not true. Also recognizing that is scarcity mentality.
Yeah.
That thought of, oh, I'm not going to get enough, or there's, I'm never going to have this again, or whatever, like there's not enough of this. No, like allow yourself to believe that, no, I can have this, I can have more of this whenever I want, but I'm full now, so I can be done with it now. I don't have to finish the entire thing. That for me has been a big one.
Something else that's interesting is, sort of going back to the comparison, external versus internal, or comparing yourself with someone. We see these again, poor Instagram, we're pointing them out today, but we see these Instagram, yogis with their cup of latte and their perfect asses. And we say, they're working out every day, and how come, and I do the same thing. I work out every day, and which I don't, but how come I don't look like that? Well, you have to also take into consideration who they are. What does their metabolism look like? What were they taught as a child?
Yeah.
Maybe they were taught these healthy, coping mechanisms or healthy habits that you weren't taught as a child because there were other things that you were being taught. Maybe you're better with money,
Yep.
or there's so many things that you can't pinpoint when it comes to comparison, but yet we sit there and we look at body, hair, and their perceived success. Because you all know those people that when they post on the socials and it looks like they have this perfect life, when for a fact they do not have a perfect life.
Yeah.
So you can't compare yourself to.
Yeah, definitely. And then it's not a coincidence that a lot of the people who are on there as big like yoga instructors and stuff have the same like slender, tall body or
No,
whatever. And they didn't get there because of yoga. Like
no,
they they
that's their natural
that's
body.
just their natural body, and they just happen to do yoga. And
Mhm.
and unfortunately it feeds into this perception of like, oh, if I do yoga I'm gonna be super skinny and slender. Well, it's like, yeah, that's not your body. Like, that's not what your body's like,
Mm-mm.
how it's made. So it's just, I'm sorry, but you can't do that. So that again goes back to that reiteration, and this is what I focus on a lot for myself, is that I can only be a better version of myself, and that's it.
Yeah. You can only be the best version of yourself, or better version, best version, whatever. Remember the other day we were talking and I was trying to figure out that word, that word that says my best version, my perfect version, because you want to find a word that doesn't place undue expectations on yourself, but also that says, I just want to be the best version of me. So, finding sort of that intention is really important for people, because then you can say that every day. I have these stickers, and I'm going to give a couple away to people in the group
On the Zoom call?
to join our Zoom call.
Okay.
And the sticker is one that you put them on your mirror. And the stickers say, my reflection in my mirror does not reflect my value in life, or it's something along those lines, but I have one on my mirror. And I got those from, I found them on Instagram and I thought they were lovely, and I bought like 20 of them. So
I love that.
just to give them away randomly.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm working on for my next shadow work class is that doing just a self-love, a body love meditation, and just really learning to tune in to your body, um and also creating a daily practice of that. Because for me, like, verbal affirmations have always felt really weird, but
Yeah.
I have no problem like saying stuff to myself in my head, which that's, well, that's, I feel like it's just as good. So again, overall over encompassing message of all this is, you have to find what works for you and then just do what works for you, and shedding that comparison and shedding that. And that's why it's okay to try different things, but it's important to recognize that there aren't any shortcuts. Like, quick fixes don't last, and if anything, it becomes more damaging in the long run if you try to take a shortcut by drinking a bunch of laxative teas, or squeezing your ribs with corsets, or I don't know, weird shit. I don't know what people are doing now, but yeah, it's taking it one day at a time, and giving yourself grace that nothing happens overnight. And that's if you want to. I mean, because what's wrong with just being okay with, sometimes it's okay to just be happy where you're at, but also, like, you can love your body and also want it to change. Like,
Yeah.
those two things
Yes.
don't necessarily have to contradict each other.
Nope. And the good thing is there are so many, people out there that you can follow, that on the socials, that can inspire you. There are a ton of people out there into body consciousness and body acceptance and all of those things. So find that person that works for you, and
Yeah.
just to sort of have that sort of support system. But
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah.
There are plenty of women out there who have larger bodies. I mean, our favorite, Izzo, or Lizzo, sorry. Oh my God, I said it. Tom Izzo. I'm kind of a basketball freak. Lizzo, that woman has no shame in her game. None. Not 1 ounce of shame in her game. And she's big and juicy and beautiful. Gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with confidence and the way that she puts herself out there, and on top of being super talented. But
Super
yeah.
talented. Yeah.
But you don't have to be super musically talented to be confident in yourself. Like that it's confidence comes from radical self-acceptance.
Radical self-acceptance. Good word. Good word. Good phrase.
Yeah. And once you accept that and accept yourself, and it's hard, we talked about this, it's hard to say like you've got to love your body before you can like really get to where you want to be, and it's so much easier to say like, well, just love yourself, but it's the small steps that get you there, and knowing that you're not going to go from like hating yourself today to loving yourself tomorrow maybe, but giving yourself that grace of knowing that you're taking the steps and you're taking the time, and you're also educating yourself so that you can release things that no longer serve you, and you can release things that you may have learned in the past that you thought were helpful, but they aren't anymore.
Do you think that I believe that people can still not be completely happy with their body, but also have confidence and be confident and be self-assured and know who they are and all that stuff, but still think, I wish my hips were smaller, or my thighs were smaller, or I didn't have such a big butt or whatever. I still think that you can have all those things. I just think it's a more complicated relationship.
I think it is more complicated. I think though, if you do feel that way, I would question why. Like, where does that come from? Like, why do I want to have smaller thighs? Like why? Because I've seen other women with smaller thighs and I like how that looks on them. But then again, accepting, but that's their body, that's not my body. And
right.
and maybe like looking at it from a different perspective of, I have strong thighs, I have strong legs, and I like that they're strong. And that's it. And maybe not nitpicking so much at the little things. And even just like, okay, the idea of fucking cellulite and how it's a bunch of bullshit, because newborn babies have cellulite, and it was all just created by some company trying to sell us shit. They pointed it out as something that's quote unquote wrong with you, and that you should fix it, and here's a product to fix it. So again, recognizing that some of the things that people may deem as quote unquote flaws, it's actually just a bunch of bullshit, someone trying to sell you something to fix something that's actually not wrong with you.
Well, to a certain degree, I think, right? Because when I look in the mirror, I know I'm a confident person. I know that I can walk into a room and I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm afraid, or whatever, right? Whatever confidence looks like. But when I look at the mirror, there are aspects of my body. I am an apple shape, so I carry all of my weight in my belly. And so that's not the place when you want to look like, like you have a waist, or like I can't wear wrap dresses. I love wrap dresses. I cannot wear wrap dresses. I look like a caramel apple that's been wrapped in fabric. I cannot do it. But I also have very shapely legs and arms, and I don't carry a lot of weight on my legs. So there are parts of my body that I love, but there are also parts of my body that not necessarily that I hate, but I don't like them because they cause me to feel not feminine or uncomfortable or self-conscious. So dealing with those, I can still be confident about who I am, but also be self-conscious about, my waist, and so that's where where I'm coming from, where it's like, okay, so what do I do? How do I integrate that? Like, how can I work on that or focus on that and say, I'm not going to allow this to stop me from doing anything, but also at the same time, I still can take issue with it, I guess. It's hard.
So if we could talk about how confidence in life how you can translate that over into confidence in your body. So if you've developed confidence in your life, you've learned to speak highly of yourself, right?
Yeah.
At least to yourself. You don't have to sound like, some boastful, whatever, egotistical person, but just in yourself, you're just like, yeah, like I can do this. I got this. Whatever success looks like for you, and the things that go on in your head, like how that translates over into your body. As far as, I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh no, I can't get anything done, or I'm lazy, or I don't know, like I suck at this, I don't know this. Like, no, I'm going to say like, I can learn this. I don't know that yet, but I can get there. So
Yeah.
same thing
Yeah.
with your body. It's like, what good does tearing it down do for you? Nothing, because it's not, that
Right.
doesn't cause change. Same thing in your career life. Beating up on yourself does not cause you to do better. If anything, you just feel awful, because now it's like no one's cheering for you. So what's wrong with cheering for yourself, with cheering for your body, with like, hey, like today's gonna be a good body day, like we're gonna, like, we feel good today, like thank
Mm-hmm.
you. Even if it's something as simple like as that. And when you, if you look at yourself in the mirror and you're just like, maybe normally you're like, oh, have like, extra here, extra there, whatever, you're just like, you know what, I feel good, I feel good today. And that's
Yeah.
it. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to necessarily, like, no one's telling you to lie to yourself, right? but
Right.
but
Yep.
it's just the acceptance of like, you know what, I feel good today,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. Maybe not overcomplicating it.
Or focusing on, well, I really like the way that my ankles, look today. Just something about yourself. I've always been very self-complimentary of my own teeth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it is a process, right?
Yeah.
It's uncovering all of the shadow and then addressing each and every circle. So if you think of it like the astrological pie, right?
Mm-hmm.
12 houses,
Mm-hmm.
each house contains a different challenge to deal with.
Yeah.
And so, I that would probably actually be a really good way to focus on all of those throughout the year. Each month you focus on a different challenge in your life. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And
Hey, good.
I've mentioned this before with, I teach this in my manifesting class about using your astrological sign to manifest.
Yeah.
But in the same way of using your astrological sign, so not to get super super specific, you don't really need to do that, but just understanding what earth elements maybe rule you. So I would go either by, I would say most likely your rising sign, because your rising sign is how you present yourself to the world. um and so taking a note of that, and are you a fire sign, are you an earth sign, an air sign, and or water sign, and incorporating that into maybe what you do for your activity, because it's likely that those activities that work, for example, water is easy. Like if you like to go swimming and you happen to be a rising water sign, maybe swimming would probably feel pretty good. If you're a fire sign, maybe you need to sweat, like maybe that's what feels
Mhm.
really good to a rising fire sign. If you're an air
What's Libra?
air. So if
Air.
air, maybe it's just going for a walk. Maybe it's doing breath work. Maybe it's just like you said, doing yoga. Like yoga, stretching, breath work go perfectly hand in hand. And that's probably why it feels really good for you specifically to do that. And
Yeah.
then grounding. So grounding is probably just like for earth elements, doing stuff outside, like
Yep.
hiking, out, just being outdoors, connecting to the earth, grounding type of
Mhm.
exercises.
I mean, you've just nailed it. Seriously, I love all of those things. Yoga, stretching, mostly stretching and just
Mhm.
and then being outside. So when I'm stretching outside, I'm the happiest I could be, or walking or hiking or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a Sagittarius rising, so I need the sweat. I
Ah,
and I
that's the
s- and I
fire.
s- and I sweat like crazy, so it's not a problem for
Yeah.
me. Yeah, but
That
I
would
need that.
actually be a really cool thing to give people like a class on how to do your like a
Yeah. I'll probably incorporate that into the class.
All right. Hey, see, listen, y'all got to sign up for this class she's going to be offering. So, and we'll talk more about it on the call, and some of the ways that we can, maybe stretch this call out if people are interested into a couple months or, something.
Yep. All right.
Okay. Wow. Well, that was a great talk. We talked about a lot of different aspects of accepting your body and diet culture and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think overall, just giving yourself grace and knowing that it's not going to happen overnight, and that's okay. It's human. You're having a human experience, and it's just learning.
It really is. It really is, and then when you think of it from that aspect, how many, we choose our body. We know in the pre-incarnation stage what our body's going to look like. We know what the potential challenges. We know what it's going to look like at optimal health and what it's going to look like at the, where it's not particularly healthy. And so those are personal choices. So then you have to ask yourself, well, what lesson does this teach me? Yep. For me, I know that it ties into the life as a prostitute, where the body was ultimately, it was the desired part, but then the emotion, women were desired for their bodies, but then they were treated like shit or not desired for other things. So I have to figure out, well, how does that incorporate?
Yeah.
What lesson does that incorporate?
Yeah.
What do you got there? You got an oracle deck?
I did. Yes, it's Gabby Bernstein's "The Universe Has Your Back" deck.
All right, what does Gabby have for us today?
It says, "I always trust the direction of the universe and know I'm being guided."
Look at that! See, you can't make this shit up. You cannot make it up. Do you have anything for the closing vibe?
I feel like that was the closing vibe.
That was the closing vibe. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have anything. So, thank you for joining us for the first episode of season 2. You can find us on all of the socials under Esoterix Podcast. And if you are not already a part of our Facebook community, it's called the Esoterix Community. You get to hear firsthand about all of our services, events, and courses and retreats, and as well as get intuitive development tips, which I have been lax, but I'm going to make a commitment to start doing those more. Card pulls, free meditations, just a whole lot more.
Yep. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. It would mean the world to us. It's as easy as sharing a screenshot on your Insta stories, and don't forget to tag us because we love to share.
We love that. Yes, we love that.
And thank you for sharing space with us today. Stay mystical, magical, and ready to do it again next week.
Yay! Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.